Hey everyone, I wanted to go online and talk a little bit about what are the documentation and requirements that you would need for applying for the Paycheck Protection Program loan as a sole proprietorship and an independent contractor. And what I would like to do is, first of all, direct you to directly the SBA website. And let's go there here. So here you got SBA and the Paychecks Protection Program loan. And of course, it has information here who can apply and finding a lender and so forth. One of the things that I wanted you to look at is, so you got this interim uh, final rule, and it's also listed here, lender forms and guidance, enter a final rule. And actually, where it says click here, I've already downloaded it so that we could just go directly to that documentation. And so if you notice here, the interim final rule right here, this documentation came out on the April 2nd, and I want to direct on page 6, and it talks about here, right here, and I'll read it, and then we'll talk about it. You are also eligible for a PPP loan if you are an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor or eligible self-employed individual. You were in operation on February 15th, 2020. You must also submit such documentation as necessary to establish eligibility, such as payroll process reports, payroll tax filings, or Form 1099 MISC, or income and expenses from a sole proprietorship. For borrowers that do not have such documentation, the borrower must provide other support documentation such as bank records sufficient to demonstrate the qualifying payroll amount. So if you are a sole proprietorship, now what is a sole proprietorship? Obviously, as someone who has filled out a Schedule C. And if you don't know what hopefully you know what a Schedule C, but I'll show that to you really quickly here. It's for sole proprietorship. Here's the Schedule C on your 1099, I mean on your 1040 form. So if you're sole proprietorship, and some LLCs that are, which is a single member LLC, um, where there's only one owner of the company, will get will fill typically fill this out if they elect to be file as a sole proprietorship. Your tax preparer can talk about that, but really all I'm wanted to focus on is what is the requirement, what documentation do you need in order to qualify to send to the bank. Now this document that I'm showing you right here is what the SBA is providing to the lenders as support documentation and guidance on how to um, lend to individuals who are sole proprietorships or businesses that are sole proprietorships or independent contractors. So if you kind of read between the lines here, the banks have a lot of leeway. The banks or any financial institution that's taking these applications have a leeway on uh, providing or making the decision on this loan. Because here's the pretty much. And here, I want to also read this to you. It says SBA intends to promptly issue additional guidance with regard to this application or affiliation rules. So in essence, more is to come. Now, as I'm completing this video. Today is Sunday, February 12th. And unfortunately, I haven't seen any additional guidance, but prayerfully, they're going to provide additional documentation to show. So you're really going to have to lean on the bank or the financial institution to say, um, hey, what kind of guidelines as a lender are you giving uh, to me as a sole proprietorship or a for just directly from the website, they're in essence giving some leeway to the lenders to make a decision on what is requirement. So if I were in your shoes, what kind of documentation I would provide? So like here, if you don't have payroll processing records, because as a self-employed, a self, um, a person that's self-employed, you can actually get documentations from a payroll or a tax accountant or CPA, payroll tax filings. So what they're basically trying to show is based on what happened in 2019 to what transpired also in the beginning of this year in 2020, the first quarter of 2020, and obviously since the COVID outbreak, with that, what that ended up doing to your income. If you can, if you have supporting documentation to show the difference between the two, and why, and justify, well, hey, this is as an income, here's what I was making, and here's what I'm not making now. This is why, here's the support, the necessary reason for me to get this application. I mean, this loan, which it could be ended up being a grant if the monies would go to payroll, which you know if you're not in operations, that's probably what it's going to do. Money's going to go to you as an individual to sustain your household. All right. Well, that's what all I wanted to do. We have other videos and that kind of thing that later on in the show, but I wanted to provide some documentation and some directions, and appreciate you tuning in.